Well, just when you thought things were crazy, mixed up, and confusing, and how much, crap that we allow to happen on this planet, or in America, or in a city, or even in your home. Here comes another new one. It's not necessarily new, it's just something that they've talked about a lot, especially from like New York. Um, but it's actually, pretty stupid.
More cities and states have decided that raising taxes on the wealthy isn't enough. Now they want to go after second homes. New York City wants a new tax on high-end second apartments. Rhode Island is rolling out the Taylor Swift tax on homes over $1 million. And in places like San Diego, they're talking about charging thousands annually just for leaving a property vacant. Democrats think it's a simple way to address budget shortfalls and housing shortages.
So they're going to tax you on a second home because you left it vacant. It's your money. You should be allowed to do with what you want. I don't know where they're getting this silliness, but they're just making it up now. Trust me, I'm showing you something crazy today, but wait a week. Probably find some new inventive method, to pull some tax dollars out of somewhere that instead of cutting back, they're just going to keep going forward with original, pride plans or whatever they've got stupid, drags in the classroom, whatever they want to do. They're just going to do it. And then they're going to charge you for it. And we're going to keep paying it or we're going to leave. Now, we're going to run out of places to leave eventually. So this is going to be a big problem. Big problem.
So instead of making it easier to build more homes, they're going after people that already own them. Jonathan, you're a property rights guy, so I would think you'd have a lot of problems.
I have a huge problem with it. Brian, this is wealth confiscation. Yeah. End of story.
When I seen this guy, he reminds me of like the guy like Better Call Saul. I mean, look at, how he's dressed and everything. He seems fake, but he's got the right idea. So give him respects for that. He just seems so clean cut, like he's a shady dude, and it just reminded me of Call Saul mixed with Fauci, but he says it right here. Here we go.
That's what this is. I mean, this is one of the central planks of the Communist Manifesto. They want money, so they just go literally take it. Now, keep in mind, this is already being taxed. These properties are already being taxed. They're already paying property tax on this. So what's never discussed through all these usually left-leaning governments is, spending cuts at all. Just a tiny little bit. And what they're doing is they're chasing out the productive, the job creators, the people who actually drive the economy. They're the ones that are going to be driven out of so many of these cities, New York included, when it's all said and done.
Dagan, you were fist pumping about the already paying taxes part of what Jonathan said, which is true.
We have talked a lot about, the very left talks about a wealth tax even at the federal level, which would be unconstitutional. Good luck with that. Where they confiscate money every year. It's like if your wealth is tied up in stocks, whatever it may be, real estate, you're going to owe tax on that idle wealth every year.
You do anyway.
California is trying to do that right now. But the property tax is a wealth tax.
Yep.
That you have to pay it every year, and it is wealth confiscation. But this is double taxation on people. And I love the.
That kind of threw me off when she said this is double taxation. I know she's probably trying to stay in a specific zone for this argument, but if you look, I mean, every place we're being way more than double taxed. I mean, you take $1 of your income and you decide how it goes through the system of trying to get you through month to month, and you're going to find that you pretty much the only thing you've got around you, wealth-wise, at least for most of us, is pretty much just the house you're sitting in, in the car you drive. Everything else is just taxed to death. I mean, you've got taxes on top of taxes on top of taxes. and then there's some more taxes. And if you're late on those taxes, then you've got some late tax fees, which, why? Why would you even charge someone a late fee on something they can't pay to begin with? So that's the kind of stuff that I'm just, when I hear her saying, double taxation, like, you're late for the fight here. We've been pretty much stuck since 1913 on this, ever since the banks took over, more or less. So, I mean, everything's been kind of spiraling in a tax situation. We don't need all these taxes. And like he said earlier, they won't cut back. They won't do cutbacks. That's like Trump's doing cutbacks to try to get us by, but none of these states are doing any cutting back at all. And you can't say, well, the roads, then they'll fall apart, because they're already falling apart, because you're not putting the money where it's supposed to go. And if you put the money where it's supposed to go, we wouldn't have these problems of you needing more and more money. You need more and more money because you keep coming up with new crazy creative communist ways of, like the prides, all that shit that they collect for that. Then, they make up some stories like feed the homeless, and yet, all the homeless are fucking still starving. I mean, they do something just like the California crap that they got going on, with the rail for how many years now, and they ain't done a damn thing with it. So, this is just becoming to where it's just downright theft. And I hope someday that we can all find a way where we can buck this system, because it's ridiculous. It's not right at all. And I don't know if we just get beat down so far that we just can't fight back, and we end up just being, the slaves that we end up being, or what. I don't mind paying taxes. I don't mind paying taxes towards something that's going to work. But I'm not going to keep my taxes rolling upwards, and your services as a mayor and as a governor, and anything state related, keeps going downwards. Just like the amount of money that we pay to fix one bridge in my own state is just an ungodly amount of money. And I'll bet you, if you took any private person that has the money and does that on their own and puts that bridge in, you're going to see such a huge difference in the money. They're wasting it. And it's not so much wasting it on what they're doing. They're just not necessarily doing that project that they're doing. They're going to siphon that money off to their coffers so they can, become more popular, get governors and all that. We need short-term limits on all these people. You're not in there to make a huge amount of money. You're in there to serve the people that you're elected for.
The Wall Street Journal article refers to it as these taxes are seen as a politically attractive fix for housing and budget shortfalls, because they think that it's only hitting very wealthy people. But there's an anecdote in here of a woman who lives in Nevada who owns a small condo in San Diego, and she goes to San Diego to receive medical care. And she says if San Diego passes this tax, it will hit her with additional in thousands of dollars, in addition to the already $4,600 in property taxes that she currently pays. They don't think about the consequences and the personal consequences of these additional taxes. And they quote some council member in San Diego, El Rivera is the person's last name, where he says, homes should be for people to live in, not to sit empty, especially during a crisis.
Yeah, who the hell's he? This is America. We can do whatever we want with our money. If we decide to buy 2 or 3 homes, then so be it. I mean, I'm not one of those. I wish I was, but I don't disrespect people because they can afford, like a vacation home in Florida or something. I think that's awesome. I would love to do that myself. But at the same time, I don't think that they should be double taxed on it and make a move. And what kind of freedom is that, though, if we're all stuck in our single homes? Even if we become wealthy enough to actually buy 2 homes, what kind of American freedom does that give us? That gives us zero, because you're obviously not going to do it. And who the hell wants to rent some hotel room, every time you want to go on a vacation like that? If they can afford to buy a condo, then hey, that's their prerogative. And there's so many people, and I can vouch for this. When I was younger, I would have loved to have had a neighbor that was only there 2 weeks in a year, or something crazy like that. That would have been awesome. In condos, this is called, we're living in the apartment situation. So, um, that would have been awesome for me, because I played my music and all that stuff. I would have loved having a neighbor that was only there 2 weeks a year. That sound like giving me part of heaven as well. You crazy people think they can dictate everything that we do in this country. They need to just back off, because they're pushing us against a corner. And we all know, sorry, we all know what happens when you push someone into a corner. We know what happens. Keep pushing us. Go ahead.
Because it's the politicians who get to say what you do with your home.
Right.
That's the piece, Jackie, I wanted to ask you about, because, there's like the tax piece where you're just confiscating wealth, but then there's this piece, which is
control.
You need to do X with Y. In this case, somebody's got to be in the thing you own, and that even goes beyond taxing. That's like super social engineering.
So also the Wall Street Journal article points this out. They say research has found limited evidence that increased taxes cause wealthy people to leave in meaningful numbers. And similar taxes, when implemented in cities overseas, great, we're following Europe, have led have led vacancies to fall as owners began renting out their second home. It is your choice, if you have a second home, what you do with it. To put a tax on people, to burden them extra, to basically, Brian, twist their arm to rent that out, is the government once again trying to tell you what to do. And it's just, when you think about what is happening in these states, I was actually surprised to read that it doesn't encourage people to leave as much as you would think that it would, because if Mondani came after me, for example, in that way, in a real egregious way that impacted my life, I would leave. I would find a way to go somewhere else, because I just wouldn't stand for it. But, I guess at the higher levels, people can bear this. At the lower levels, once they control you and
That's the thing we all need to realize, this is happening in New York. I don't live in New York, so it's not my problem. Or if I do live in New York, I'm just moving to Florida anyway. I already got down here and I'm all settled in Florida. Well, it's not just all 50 states have to follow a certain standard. And as you keep losing certain standard states, you're going to end up finding yourself one day, and as crazy as things have gotten, it's a possibility. You could have just turn around one day, and then just all of a sudden all the states are blue, and we're just pride parades for days, and theft and looting and killing, and freaking you got to be Muslim, whatever. This is something we're all going to have to eventually stand up to. It doesn't matter where you run to. It's coming for you. And one state leads to 2, leads to 5, leads to 10. You get even close to 50% of these states going blue, and we're done. We're either going, we're being pushed in a corner, and we're not going to stand for it, because there's no better place to go. It's not like we're in a third world country, so we can say, oh well, we'll just move to America. No, there's nowhere to go that's better. That's why we're so upset about this. It's not like we can go from one communist country to another just because we think it's a tiny bit better. There's nowhere to go. You're either going to go from America and defend it, or you're going to end up eventually, you or your children or your children's children are going to end up having to just grin and bear it, because there's nowhere to go. Nowhere at all. No place is better than America.
and you rent out your property, then you can give some of the revenue back to them. But it just makes me sick, especially with the fraud, waste, and abuse. You keep asking people for more and more money when you can't manage the budgets that you have. You can't make sure that money gets to those who need it and is allocated properly. Stop asking for more when you can't manage what you have.
Well, and I'll just
That's
point
right.
out, they're going to
That's
tax
right.
you on that property that's over $1
Mismanagement.
million, right? So they'll take on $5,000 a year. Then what happens when the property falls in price? Let's say it goes down to $900,000.
You don't get a refund.
Oh, you don't get that back?
Yeah, there's no
Of
refund.
course not.
You
No,
don't
they'll
get a
just
refund.
lower the threshold, or they'll just pretend it's still $1 million. That's
Yeah.
all they'll do.
Yeah.
Speaking of not spending money on things you should, you've got all, because I know that you're Mrs. Muni Bond. There's all sorts of infrastructure that none of these cities fix up.
Yeah.
So, they want the taxes. And if a tax goes to making a road smooth and a street clean, that's one thing.
Right.
But if
Right.
it's going to fund the latest DEI project, that's another thing.
Fuck
Well,
that.
and that's where you're hitting this twice, because it was Mayor Francis Suarez of Miami, former mayor, who sat there and said, this is like the best kind of client you want. They pay taxes, but they never call the fire department. They never call the police. They never do
Yeah.
anything. It's like a subscription software revenue. They collect revenue every year and you don't have to do anything. So you're driving them away, the people who don't use the services that you're using the tax revenue for. And then, Brian, to your point, they're actually not even using the tax revenue for the things that they're supposed
It's
to be,
theft.
which is fixing up the roads,
100%
building the
theft.
schools, and maybe building out an extra lane of highway when it gets busy. What's the flip side of this, though? You have a young generation that looks at the top 0.01%, and
Yep.
they're saying, "Come on, I am with you. I want less spending. This is ridiculous." But I'm wondering if there is the
She's
people who
speechless, too.
don't even notice it, and that's why they're not leaving, because it's not even like it's like a rounding error on their checkbook for the extra taxes. I'm not for this. I am just saying that that's where it's anger. These young people are really angry that housing is not affordable.
It's
More than young
class
people.
warfare stirred up by guys like Mondami.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. He went outside Ken Griffin's house, pointed at him. I mean, isn't that doxing?
Yes.
It
is.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
then did you see the mayor of LA got mad when Spencer Pratt did it? And he's like, I'm just doing what everyone else is doing.
But it's the idea that politicians will say to, like, a woman who owns a condo in San Diego, you're not using it enough, you need to get out. And we're going to raise your taxes so much, we will force you out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I just find that dangerously un-American.
And incredibly controlling.
Yeah.
That's
By
a
the way,
nice
I don't
way
love
of
the whole
putting it.
idea of like baptizing envy and anger either. Sometimes we say like young people are angry and envious and like, oh my gosh. Sometimes you need to say, well, stop being angry and envious and start living life.
America, that young, jealous person can become a Ken Griffin. They can become a successful businessman, but they don't do it by stealing from those who've succeeded. They do it by proving their own mettle, and in America, you can.